We call him Never Nervous Sam, and he's the quiet assassin. He does the job quietly.
Sam is our silent assassin. You watch the game film, and Sam does the little things that count so very much in a team win.
He looked so casual playing the game. He never rushed anything, to the point that it sometimes looked lazy. But then you start letting up, and by the end of the game, Sam Perkins has about 15 points and 8 rebounds while playing great defense on the other end. And he did exactly that for over 15 years in the NBA. One of the most consistent players of all time was an ageless wonder. He's one of the lesser talked about members of the great Tar Heel teams of the early to mid 80s, yet one of the most important. He then became one of the most valued starters in the league during the first half of his career spent with Dallas and LA, where he showed an ability to play and guard multiple positions and provide great production, but at the same time conform to any role that was asked of him with absolutely no complaints. The second half of his career spent with Seattle and Indiana would be much of the same in regards of doing what was asked of him, but he would reinvent himself as one of the first big men to stretch the floor as he became a lethal deep threat while still giving you great post defense. He had a role on every team he played on from his first to his last year, and it's no coincidence that any team he was on was virtually a lock to make the playoffs, as everything about Sam Perkins' game and career represented winning basketball. So it's only right we talk about it. Let's jog your memory. A New York native, Sam Perkins was raised by his grandmother in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, until Herb Crossman became his legal guardian when he was a high school junior, and moved him to Latham, New York, where he would enroll at Shaker High School and play high school basketball for the first time going into his junior year, as prior to that, he had quit the JV team due to his grandmother, as she was a devout Jehovah's Witness and required Perkins to put his faith first and attend Kingdom Hall classes, which Perkins partially attributes to his nonchalant play on the court, as Jehovah's Witness teaches people to be meek and mild. And reportedly, he also couldn't return to the court earlier due to his grades, which prevented him from earning eligibility, as he skipped class a lot during his early high school years. During Perkins' 2 years at Shaker, he averaged 25 points and 16 rebounds, and was being recruited by top programs like UCLA, Syracuse, and North Carolina. But a friendship he had developed with James Worthy at the 1979 World Cup may have secured his commitment to UNC, as he would later say that he considered Worthy to be his biggest influence in basketball. So in just a couple years, Perkins had gotten himself a scholarship to play for one of the nation's best teams, where he would choose his number 41 due to it being his sleeve length. Perkins was joining a Tar Heels team led by senior guard Al Wood, but also featuring a sophomore Worthy. And the freshman Perkins would quickly become one of the team's best players. He would appear in every game for the team, including 21 starts, as he would even be the team's second leading scorer and rebounder, while also being their best shot blocker. And on top of this, he would lead the ACC in true shooting percentage, as he would see himself named Conference Rookie of the Year. The Tar Heels were having a good year, as they were 16-4 after 20 games, but would then go 5-3 the rest of the regular season, to finish at 21-7. But they began winning when it counted, as they would defeat NC State, Wake Forest, and then Maryland in the conference tournament, as UNC would be crowned ACC champs. They would enter the NCAA tourney as a 2 seed. Perkins would begin with 19 points and 5 rebounds on 60% shooting in a second round defeat of Pitt, and would then put up 15 points, 11 boards, and 4 blocks in a Sweet 16 win versus Utah. The Elite 8 brought Kansas State, where Perkins would go for 16-11 in another win, leading to a Final Four matchup versus Virginia, where Perkins would have 11 points and 9 boards in yet another win, as UNC was heading to the national championship versus Indiana. Unfortunately, they would come up short as they lost to the Hoosiers, with Perkins putting up 11 points and 8 boards, but his freshman season saw him average about 15 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game. So after falling 1 game short of their first national championship in 25 years, the Tar Heels were also losing Al Wood to graduation, so filling that void was going to be tough, but they were welcoming a freshman guard out of Laney High School in Wilmington, named Michael Jordan. Perkins' numbers would be quite similar to his freshman year, and he would again be the team's second best scorer, but this year he would lead them in blocks and rebounds, while finishing 3rd in the conference in true shooting, as he would be named first team All-Conference and a consensus second team All-American. North Carolina began the year ranked number 1 and looked like the top ranked team, as they started 13-0, but would surprisingly lose to unranked Wake Forest. They would lose just one more time the rest of the way, as they finished the regular season at 24-2, as the number 2 ranked team in the nation. After running through Georgia Tech and NC State, they would defeat Virginia by 2 to win their second straight conference championship, leading to a 1 seed going into the NCAA tournament. They survived a second-round scare versus James Madison, as Perkins put up a game-high 17 points and 10 rebounds in a 2-point win. A Sweet 16 defeat of Alabama saw Perkins drop 15 points on over 62% shooting. He would go for 13 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 blocks in an Elite 8 victory over Villanova, as they would return to the Final Four in a matchup with the Phi Slama Jama Houston Cougars. Hakeem Olajuwon spent most of the game in foul trouble, only playing 20 minutes, and Perkins took advantage of his absence, as he went for a game-high 25 points on 9 of 11 shooting with a game-high 10 rebounds, as his big performance led UNC to a 5-point win and a second straight trip to the national championship to take on Patrick Ewing and Georgetown. This would be a great game, yet Perkins would take a back seat to Worthy and Jordan on the offensive end, as he would only take 7 shots, finishing with 10 points and 7 rebounds. The game was close, yet Georgetown was up by 1 with about 20 seconds left as the Tar Heels had possession. But this is where the legend of Michael Jordan truly began.
Daugherty to Blackman. The tie, 18. Shot, Jordan! Michael Jordan!
Jordan would hit the go-ahead bucket, and then Georgetown's Fred Brown passed the ball directly to Worthy, forcing an intentional foul from Georgetown. And even though he missed both free throws, Georgetown's last-second game-winning attempt was no good, as Perkins and UNC were champions for the first time since 1957. And his sophomore season ended with him averaging about 14.5 points, 8 rebounds, and a block and a half per game. For the second straight year, the Tar Heels lost their top scorer, as Worthy left early for the NBA. But now Jordan and Perkins were looked at as one of the best duos in the nation. However, the Tar Heels did feature other good players, like junior Matt Daugherty and freshman Brad Daugherty. No relation. Perkins would again be the team's second best scorer, while leading the team in rebounds and blocks, as he would finish second in the conference in blocks and was again named first team all-conference, yet this year would be a consensus first team All-American. And although he attempted just 28 threes in the first year of the ACC adopting the three-point line, he would still make nearly 43% of them. After being more of a defensive team in Perkins' first 2 years, the Tar Heels prioritized offense this season, finishing as the 13th best scoring offense in the nation. UNC began the season ranked number 3, but would lose their first 2 games. Then after 6 games, they were 3-3, but they would then win 18 straight, including a January 15th win versus number 3 ranked Virginia, led by Ralph Sampson, when Perkins went off for 36 points while going 4 for 4 from deep, as overall they would end their regular season at 25-6. After an overtime loss to NC State in the ACC tournament semifinals, they would get a bid to the NCAA tournament as a 2 seed, where they would run through James Madison in round 2, as Perkins finished with a game-high 18 points on nearly 64% shooting, along with 3 blocks. The Sweet 16 brought Ohio State, and even though Perkins spent most of the game in foul trouble, he would still finish with 15 points and 6 boards in a win. They would get a matchup with Georgia in the Elite 8, yet Perkins had inadvertently lit a fire under the Bulldogs, as before the game he asked what conference they played in, which was perceived as arrogance, yet Perkins was asking the question genuinely. He would play well with 14 points and 11 rebounds, but Jordan fouled out late, and Georgia would defeat UNC by 5 points, as Perkins' junior year saw him average about 17 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game. Perkins was back for his senior season, as North Carolina was ranked number 1 to start the year. They had a few great incoming freshmen, with the best of the bunch being guard Kenny Smith. Perkins would yet again be the team's second leading scorer, as well as top rebounder and shot blocker on career-high averages. He would still have the best true shooting percentage in the conference, while making the most free throws, as he was again named first team all-conference and a consensus first team All-American. The '84 Tar Heels are considered one of the best teams to not win it all, as they started the year at 16-0 before Kenny Smith broke his wrist in their 17th game versus LSU. He would miss the next 8 games, yet UNC would continue winning as their streak reached 21 before they lost to Arkansas, overall finishing the regular season at 26-1. Smith had returned near the end of the season, but was still playing with a cast, and after beating Clemson in the ACC tournament quarterfinals, they would lose to Duke in the semis. But they would still enter the NCAA tournament as a 1 seed and would defeat Temple in round 2, as Perkins finished with 12 points, 14 rebounds, and 4 blocks. But their tourney came to an abrupt end as they were upset by Indiana in the Sweet 16. The entire team struggled, including Jordan having just 13 points before fouling out. But Perkins was the lone bright spot, finishing with the team-high 26 points and 9 rebounds on about 47% shooting. But Perkins' final college season ended with him averaging about 17.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game. Perkins would add some more hardware to his collection over the summer, as he and Jordan both suited up for Team USA at the LA Summer Olympics, as Perkins would average about 8 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks in a gold medal winning effort. So Perkins and Jordan were both entering the NBA draft, and it was pretty clear that Hakeem Olajuwon, Sam Bowie, and Jordan were the likely top 3 picks. But Perkins was thought by most to be the next selection after these 3, and after Olajuwon, Bowie, and Jordan were off the board, Dallas was on the clock.
Dallas selects Sam Perkins of the University of North Carolina.
Perkins was joining a relatively new Mavs team, yet one who were coming off their best season in their brief history, making it to the second round of the playoffs. They were led by their star duo of Mark Aguirre and Rolando Blackman, but featured a deep bench, with future All-Star Dale Ellis and future All-Defense member Derek Harper. Perkins would begin the season as a starter, but would soon be replaced by Kurt Nymphius. However, in early February, he would be reinserted into the starting lineup and stay there. Overall, Perkins would start 42 of the 82 games he played, hitting double figures in 45 of them, including 6 games with at least 20 and 15 double-doubles. He would finish as one of 5 players on the team to average double figures, while finishing 2nd in rebounding and blocks. Additionally, he would be 6th in scoring and 4th in rebounding among rookies, as he would be named first team All-Rookie. Dallas played at a slow pace, yet would still have a top 10 scoring offense and defense in the league, finishing at 44 and 38 and getting a first-round matchup versus Portland, where Perkins would show that he isn't fazed by postseason pressure. Perkins would put up 26 points and 13 rebounds on over 56% shooting in a Game 1 win. Then in Game 2, he would have 14 points and a postseason career-high 19 rebounds in a 3-point loss. Game 3 would see him go for 14 and 9 in another losing effort. Then in Game 4, he would put up 21 and 10, while going 11 of 13 from the free throw line. But he would foul out in a 2-point loss, ending the Mavs season. Yet his first year saw him average about 11 points, 7.5 rebounds, and a block per game. The Mavs were a deep team who got deeper in the '85 draft, as they selected Detlef Schrempf out of Washington. And they also made an early season trade with the Clippers for some interior defense, acquiring big man James Donaldson. Perkins would be the team's starting forward in year 2, as he finished 3rd on the team in scoring, as well as 2nd in rebounding and blocks, while shooting above 50%. This year, Perkins would hit double figures in 63 games, including 2 games with at least 30, while also recording 24 double-doubles, which included one of the best games of his career, in a December 12th loss to Houston, when he had 31 points on 11 of 16 shooting, to go along with a career-high 20 rebounds. Dallas started slowly as they began the year at 4-7 before going on a 6-game win streak, then hovering around 500 all year, until they finished at 44 and 38 and got a first-round matchup versus Utah. This would be a 4-game series win for Dallas, which Perkins would again show up for, as he upped his numbers to average 18 points and 11 rebounds, which included double-doubles in 3 of the 4 games, as well as a game-high 29 points and 12 rebounds on nearly 60% shooting in the series-clinching Game 4. The second round brought the Lakers, who were too much for Dallas. However, the Mavs didn't go away easy in a 6-game series loss, as 4 of the 6 games were decided by 4 points or less. The Lakers got out to a 2-game lead before Dallas evened the series, but then lost the next 2. Perkins was not able to find the same success, as he put up about 13 points and 6.5 rebounds in the series, and struggled shooting, going about 40% from the field. But his regular season saw him average about 15.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, and a block per game. The Mavs continued to draft well going into the '87 season, as they had selected Michigan's Roy Tarpley. However, they had traded Dale Ellis to Seattle during the offseason for one of Perkins' old teammates, in Al Wood. Tarpley played the same position as Perkins, yet would come off the bench with Perkins retaining his starting spot. 4th-year guard Derek Harper had a breakout season, but Perkins would still finish 2nd on the team in rebounding and 3rd in blocks, as all 5 starters averaged double figures. Perkins would have his usual consistent year, hitting double figures in 65 games, including 15 games with at least 20 and 21 double-doubles. The Mavs had their best regular season in franchise history, as they went 55 and 27, which was their first time winning at least 50 games. But their playoffs would be short, as Dale Ellis and the Supersonics were ready for them. Dallas would win Game 1 easily, but would then lose the next 3 and the series. Perkins got better as the series went on, as he hit double figures in each game and had double-doubles in the final 2 games, including 24 points and 12 rebounds in Game 4. However, Ellis looked like he was out for blood, as he averaged 29.5 points and 8 rebounds on over 55% shooting in the series. And Perkins' season ended with him averaging about 15 points, 7.5 rebounds, and a block per game. After the season, the Mavs' only head coach, Dick Motta, resigned and would be replaced with John McLeod. Perkins would remain the team starter, but Tarpley had been elevated to the sixth man role and would play his role pretty well, as he was voted sixth man of the year in 1988. Under McLeod, the Mavs retained most of their scoring power, but had a much better defense compared to last season. Perkins continued his consistent play, giving the Mavs a reliable player on both ends of the court, as he was highly respected in the locker room for his willingness to do whatever was asked of him with no complaints, with teammate Derek Harper giving him high praise, saying that he was always willing to sacrifice and play his role in the name of team success. Perkins would hit double figures in 62 games, including 10 games with at least 20 and 21 double-doubles, and the Mavs were looking great. They were 28-15 going into the All-Star break, and soon after would rattle off 11 straight wins, to be sitting at 40-17. They wouldn't finish strong, going 13-12 in the final 25 games, but they were still 53-29, and were about to make some real noise in the postseason. Round 1 brought the Rockets, who Dallas would defeat in 4 games. Perkins was playing well, with about 14.5 points and 7.5 rebounds per game, as he would hit double figures in all 4 games, which would set up a matchup with the Nuggets. Perkins would start slow and average just 10 points after the first 2 games, with the series tied 1-1. But then he would have no less than 15 points in each of the remaining games, and his best performance came in a Game 6 closeout opportunity. Aguirre had gotten himself in foul trouble, as he would play just 19 minutes and score 4 points, and Perkins would be the one to step up, as he tied for the team lead with 23 points on 8 of 12 shooting, to go along with 11 rebounds and 3 blocks, as Dallas won to advance to their first conference finals, where waiting for them were the LA Lakers. LA would go up 2-0 before Dallas evened the series. Then the two teams would split games, setting up a Game 7, but the Mavs would come up short in their quest for a finals appearance. Perkins had been seeing a lesser role in favor of Tarpley, as he was often in foul trouble, and would average around 11 points on about 43% shooting, while also only pulling down 4.5 rebounds. But he would hit double figures in 4 of the 7 games, including a Game 3 double-double. However, he would go just 5 of 14 from the field in the series-deciding Game 7. Yet Perkins' regular season would see him average about 14 points, 8 rebounds, and half a block per game. 89 would be a season of big change in Dallas. Tarpley would play in 13 of the team's first 27 games before he would seek help for a cocaine addiction that he had been knowingly struggling with since 1987, as he would miss over 3 months and return to play in 6 more games near the end of the year. Additionally, around the trade deadline, the Mavs traded their unhappy franchise player Mark Aguirre to the Pistons for their unhappy star Adrian Dantley. So these big events would make it hard for Dallas to have another successful season. Yet Perkins would have a great year. He would record his highest scoring average in 3 years, while pulling down a career-high 8.8 rebounds per game. He would hit double figures in 66 games, including one 30-point game, while also recording 30 double-doubles. The Mavs were 17-10 before Tarpley stepped away from the team, and were 26-21 at the time of the Aguirre trade, but they would crumble after this, going 12-23, including a 12-game losing streak, as they finished at 38-44 and missed the playoffs. But his regular season would see him average about 15 points, 9 rebounds, and a block per game. Tarpley would be back for 1990, but an early season DUI would see him suspended for over 2 months, as he would appear in 45 games this season. Additionally, Dantley would break his fibula in early February, which ended his year after 45 games. Perkins would hit double figures in 66 games, including 17 double-doubles, which would also include a career night in an April 12th win versus Golden State, when he went for a career-high 45 points on 19 of 26 shooting, to go along with 13 rebounds and 7 assists. After a 5-6 start, McLeod had been replaced with Richie Adebayo, who the team would go 42-29 under to finish at 47-35 and make a return to the playoffs. But it would be a short return, as they were swept in the first round by Portland, with Perkins averaging about 15 points and 7 rebounds. And for his regular season, he would put up about 16 points, 7.5 rebounds, and a block per game. Yet Perkins had played his final game as a member of the Dallas Mavericks. A free agent Perkins would sign with the Lakers in the offseason for 6 years and about $19 million. And maybe it was easier for Dallas to let him walk, as it seemed that Tarpley was the more effective player. However, Tarpley wouldn't be able to escape his addiction. But now Perkins' focus was on joining a Lakers team who featured one of his best friends in James Worthy. The Lakers were unknowingly at the tail end of their Showtime era, but for now were still led by Worthy and Magic Johnson, and were one of the most dangerous teams in the league. Perkins would have a great Lakers debut, as he had 22 points and 10 rebounds off the bench in a loss to San Antonio. He would come off the bench for a few more games before entering the starting lineup and rattling off double-figure scoring in 53 of the 66 games he started, which included 2 games with at least 30 and 11 double-doubles. Perkins' first season in LA would see him shoot 49.5% from the field, which was his highest average since 1986. He would only shoot about 28% from deep, but he took a then career-high 64 threes, as early in the season, head coach Mike Dunleavy had asked Perkins and center Vlade Divac to start working on their threes. LA started at 3-5, but would put together an 8-game win streak, then a 16-game win streak, followed by 2 more 6-game win streaks. As by season's end, they were 54-24, and entering the playoffs with a first-round matchup versus Houston. Overall, this would be the best postseason of Perkins' career. A first-round sweep of the Rockets would see him average about 15 points and 9 rebounds on over 62% shooting, while also recording nearly 2 steals and 2 blocks per game. As they advanced to a second-round matchup versus Golden State, Perkins would again produce with incredible efficiency, as he would finish as one of 3 players on the team to average at least 20 points, and would also pull down about 8.5 rebounds per game, and shot even better, at over 64%. The Lakers would win in 5, with Perkins hitting double figures in every game, recording 2 games with at least 24, and putting up 19 points and 15 rebounds in the closeout Game 5. The conference finals brought Portland, and Perkins continued his great play, averaging about 17.5 points and 8 rebounds on over 58% shooting in a 6-game series win, which included a game-high 26 points on 10 of 14 shooting in a 1-point Game 6 win. So now the Lakers were back in the finals, where waiting for them was a hungry Chicago Bulls team, led by Perkins' former UNC teammate Michael Jordan. Game 1 had been close, yet Perkins had played great, as with less than 20 seconds left and the Bulls clinging to a 1-point lead, Perkins had 19 points and had gone 2 of 3 from deep, but the Lakers had possession and Magic found Perkins wide open from beyond the arc.
Running down, and Perkins goes for 3, he's got it! He went for the shot from downtown!
Perkins would hit what ended up being the game winner, as all that 3-point practice throughout the season had paid off, and LA stole Game 1 in Chicago. Unfortunately for the Lakers, that would be the only celebration they would get, as Jordan would completely dominate the remainder of the series, and the Bulls would win 4 straight to take the title. Perkins would be up and down this series, as although he would have 3 games with at least 22 points, he would also have one of his worst playoff performances in Game 4, when he had 3 points on 1 of 15 shooting. But his season ended with him averaging about 13.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 1 block per game. But then a bomb was dropped about a week into the 1991 season.
Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will have to retire from the Lakers.
So the Lakers had to abruptly move on from arguably the greatest player in franchise history. Sadal Threet would admirably take over as point guard for the season, and the Lakers still featured Perkins and Worthy. But Worthy would struggle with injuries all year, only appearing in 42 games and being shut down for the final 15 games of the season after knee surgery. And Divac would miss over half the year after back surgery. With Worthy missing so much time, Perkins would step up to have one of his best offensive seasons, as he would finish second on the team in scoring, behind a career-high 16.5 points per game, while also tying his career high with 8.8 rebounds per game, which would be second on the team. Yet Perkins would also struggle with knee and shoulder issues, limiting him to a career-low 63 games. He would still hit double figures in 54, including 22 with at least 20 points, and would record 26 double-doubles. But the earlier mentioned shoulder issue would eventually end his season, as he would be unavailable for the Lakers' first-round series versus Portland, which they lost in 4 games. But for the regular season, Perkins averaged about 16.5 points, 9 rebounds, and a block per game. Perkins began the 93 season with the Lakers, but the Johnson retirement had forced them into a rebuild. And even though Perkins was putting up his usual consistent numbers of about 14 points and 7.5 rebounds, he was also 31. So on February 23rd, after 49 games with the Lakers, he was traded to the Sonics for Benoit Benjamin and Doug Christie. Sonics GM Bob Whitsitt would say that they needed a 2-position player like Perkins, who could score in the post and also play defense. But he was also more mobile than Benjamin, which worked better in George Karl's offense. And in addition to that, he was a big man who could space the floor with his long-range ability, which was rare, and really helped open up the paint for guys like Shawn Kemp and Derek McKee. But the defense Perkins offered couldn't be undersold. He was never putting up huge defensive numbers or making all defensive teams, but he was an incredibly sound defender, as Lakers coach Randy Fund would refer to him as possibly their best defensive player. And it looked like there was a lot of truth to that, as the Lakers were 26-23, allowing about 103 points on 47% shooting when Perkins was traded, and in the remaining 33 games would go 13-20, while allowing 6 more points per game on 52% shooting. So Perkins joined a Sonics team led by a young Shawn Kemp and Gary Payton, yet for the first time since his rookie year, he would come off the bench, as he would transition to a valuable reserve role for the second half of his career. He and Eddie Johnson would be two of the top bench players in the league, and Perkins would still average 12 points, while shooting over 51% in his 31 games with Seattle. But more impressive was the fact that he took 42 threes in those 31 games, while making 19 of them, which was over a 45% success rate. The Sonics were 34-17 at the time of the trade, and would go 21-10 the rest of the way, to finish at 55-27 and get a first-round matchup with Utah. This would be a hard-fought 5-game series with Perkins coming off the bench the first 2 games, before being inserted into the starting lineup for the remainder of the playoffs. And in games 3 through 5 of the series, he would average 18 points and over 9 rebounds per game. But it wasn't looking good in game 5, as Seattle was down 9 at halftime. But then in the third quarter, Perkins would help lead the comeback. The Sonics would outscore the Jazz 39-18 in the third quarter, with Perkins putting up 11 points and draining 3 shots beyond the arc, as well as adding a huge dunk in the third quarter alone, as he would again play his best in a closeout game, finishing with a team-high 20 points and 13 rebounds in a win. Round 2 brought Houston and another series that went the distance, as the teams would split the first 6 games. Perkins had been up and down as he averaged 17 points in the first 2 games, but then failed to hit double figures in the next 3. He had an 11-point game 6, and then with the series on the line, he again played his best, as he had 23 points and 9 rebounds on 10 of 13 shooting in a 3-point game 7 win, to advance to a conference finals matchup with Phoenix. This would be another 7-game series, with Perkins hitting double figures in 6 of those games. However, he struggled to find his shot, as although he was the team's 3rd best scorer, he would shoot below 39% for the series, yet would shoot 37% from deep. His best performance again came in Game 7, as he had 19 points on about 54% shooting, but it wouldn't be enough as Phoenix took the series. And Perkins' overall regular season saw him average about 13 points, 6.5 rebounds, and a block per game. The 94 Sonics had made some offseason additions in acquiring Kendall Gill from Charlotte, as well as Perkins' former Dallas teammate Detlef Schrempf from Indiana. And this new-look team was able to put together one of the best regular seasons in franchise history. Perkins would actually be a starter the first half of the year, before George Karl decided he'd be better coming off the bench, which was likely partially due to 6th-man Ricky Pierce playing in just 51 games this year, and Karl wanting more offense off the bench. Perkins would see a significant drop in his overall field goal percentage this season, which would become the norm the rest of his career, but this was due to him now being used primarily as a floor spacer with his pick and pop ability, as well as his spot-up shooting. Up to this point in his career, Perkins' season high for 3-point attempts was 71, but he would almost quadruple it this year, as he attempted 273s, however would still make nearly 37% of them. The Sonics were able to finish with a then franchise record 63 wins, which would get them the top seed in the West, and a first-round matchup with Denver. Perkins would hit double figures in 3 games, including 1 double-double, but after winning the first 2 games, Seattle would lose 3 straight, as Perkins didn't have his usual closeout heroics, recording 0 points on 0 of 7 shooting in a Game 4 loss, then just 11 points on 3 of 7 shooting in a Game 5 loss, as Seattle became the first 1 seed to lose to an 8 seed. But for the regular season, Perkins averaged about 12.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and half a block per game. It was much of the same for the 95 Sonics. Conflict between Payton and Pierce had led to Pierce being traded in the offseason, as Perkins would be the team's best scorer who primarily came off the bench. He would take 343 shots from beyond the arc, making nearly 40% of them, as he was one of the biggest deep threats in the league at this point, and would have 21 games recording 3 or more 3-pointers from beyond the arc. The Sonics were once again a top team in the league, finishing at 57-25, which included a 10-game win streak in January and another 7-game win streak in March, as they would get a first-round matchup with the Lakers. But for the second straight year, they would be upset in round 1, this time in 4 games. They would win game 1 before losing the next 3, as Perkins would hit double figures in every game while shooting over 45% from deep, and would also pull down at least 7 boards in all 4 games. But his regular season would see him average about 12.5 points, 5 rebounds, and half a block per game. The 96 Sonics had a new look and something to prove after 2 early playoff exits. They had swapped Kendall Gill for Hersey Hawkins, but other than that looked pretty much the same. Perkins was now 34 years old, and although he would see a slight minutes decrease, was still productive, putting up about 12 points while also shooting a career-high 363 shots from beyond the arc, yet still making over 35% of them. It made more sense for Perkins to shoot threes, as at his age, he couldn't move like he used to in a fast-paced Sonics offense, but he was a great trailer for Payton to get the ball to in transition for an open three. And overall, the Sonics were great on both sides of the ball, and finished with the West's best record at 64-18. This time they would make it out of the first round, as they would defeat Sacramento in 4 games. Perkins wouldn't shoot well, but he would still average 12 points per game. Round 2 brought the Rockets, who the Sonics would sweep. The whole team would play great, but Perkins was an X factor off the bench, as he averaged 14 points while shooting over 63% from the field and over 53% from deep, and would also play solid defense on both Hakeem Olajuwon and Robert Horry. The conference finals brought the Jazz, but this series wouldn't be as easy. Yet Perkins remained a reliable offensive weapon off the bench. He would average over 12 points on nearly 51% from the field and nearly 43% from deep, as he would hit double figures in 5 of the 7 games, with his best performance coming in a Game 4 win, when he had 20 points and 6 rebounds while going 3 of 5 from deep, as the Sonics advanced to face Perkins' old friend Michael Jordan and the Bulls in the finals. But this would be Perkins' toughest series, as although he would still average double figures, he would shoot below 38% from the field and below 24% from deep. He would start solid, hitting double figures in the first 2 games, but Chicago won both and then won Game 3. Yet Perkins had his best performance in Game 4 to help keep the Sonics alive, when he had 17 points on 7 of 13 shooting. The Sonics would take Game 5 as well, before losing Game 6 and the series. But Perkins' season would see him average about 12 points, 4.5 rebounds, and half a block per game. The Sonics looked the same in 97, and although Perkins' minutes continued to drop, he was still extremely productive into his mid-30s, as he was the only non-starter to average double figures and would shoot nearly 40% from deep, as he would earn himself a spot in the 3-point shootout at All-Star Weekend, and would even tie a then NBA record on January 15th, when he hit 8 threes without a miss in a blowout win over Toronto. The Sonics would again finish near the top of the West at 57-25, and would get a first-round matchup with Phoenix. Perkins struggled over the first 3 games, as he was averaging about 4 points on a combined 4 of 19 shooting, as Seattle fell behind 2-1, but he would then average 15.5 points on 60% shooting in the final 2 games, as Seattle would win both to advance. But their season would end in the second round against Houston. Perkins had been made a starter for the series, but would only manage about 8 points on less than 29% shooting, while having his hands full with Olajuwon. But his regular season saw him average about 11 points, 3.5 rebounds, and half a block per game. Seattle had made a blockbuster trade before the 98 season, which saw them ship out the unhappy Kemp in a 3-team deal and receive All-Star forward Vin Baker in return. This would also mark the first time in Perkins' now 14-year career in which he didn't average double-figure scoring. He would still get about 21 minutes per game in 81 games off the bench, and could still provide solid defense and great shooting, as he would shoot over 39% from deep. Even with the forward swap, the Sonics were among the league's elite, finishing at 61-21. But Perkins would have a lesser role than usual in the playoffs, getting about 18 minutes and only putting up about 3.5 points on 30% shooting in a first-round defeat of Minnesota. The second round brought the Lakers, who would defeat Seattle in 5, as Perkins averaged an improved 7 points on 45% shooting, but his regular season saw him put up about 7 points, 3 rebounds, and half a block per game. However, Perkins' contract was up after the season, and Seattle decided not to re-sign the now 37-year-old. During free agency of the lockout-shortened 99 season, Perkins signed on with the Pacers. He would provide Indiana with a solid veteran backup who could play the 4 and 5, while again being able to space the floor and open up the paint. He wouldn't have a big role, but he would be part of the regular rotation, appearing in 48 games for a 33-17 Pacers team. They would get Milwaukee in round 1, who they would sweep, as Perkins had a throwback performance, with 14 points and less than 14 minutes off the bench in Game 2. But overall, he wouldn't get much playing time this postseason, as he would get around 10 minutes per game in a 4-game sweep of Philly in round 2. Then in a 6-game conference finals loss to New York, he would again get about 10 minutes per game, and his regular season saw him average about 5 points, 3 rebounds, and half a block per game. Even at 38, Perkins continued to give the Pacers valuable minutes during the 2000 season. He would come off the bench to play in 81 games, while giving the team 20 minutes per game, even improving his scoring from the year before, and shooting a career-high 40.8% from deep. Indiana remained a top team, going 56-26, and would defeat Milwaukee in 5 games in the first round, as Perkins averaged about 5 points and 3.5 rebounds. They would beat the Sixers in round 2, with Perkins putting up about 4.5 points and 2 rebounds, while the conference finals would again bring New York, but this time they were ready and would defeat them in 6 games, with Perkins averaging about 4 points and 3 rebounds. But their run ended in the finals versus the Lakers, as they would be defeated in 6 games, and Perkins would put up 6 points and 4 rebounds for the series, while also shooting nearly 48% from deep. And for the regular season, he would average about 6.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, and half a block per game. 2001 would see Perkins play in 64 games, even starting 41 of them, as center Rick Smits had retired after the 2000 season. However, Perkins still would only get about 15 minutes per game for a Pacers team that finished 41-41. And although they made the playoffs, they would lose in the first round to Philly, as Perkins rarely saw the floor. But for the regular season, he put up about 4 points, 2.5 rebounds, and half a block per game. But that would be the end of the line for Perkins, as the Pacers waived him before the 02 season, and after 4 great years at North Carolina and 17 extremely consistent seasons in the NBA, he would call it a career shortly before the age of 40. Sam Perkins was exactly what his nickname implied, just an all-around smooth player on the court. He played at his pace at all times and never seemed to let anyone change that. He played his role and was always ready when he was called upon. The big moment never seemed to get to him, but it was almost like he didn't know that it was a big moment, as he was so nonchalant on the court. He was versatile on both ends during the first half of his career as an underrated starter in the league, then would spend the second half of his career as a valuable reserve and one of the best floor spacers in the game. He never won a championship in the NBA, but you can never say he wasn't a winner, as there was only one season of his career that his team missed the playoffs. He went to a conference finals with each team he played on, and NBA finals with 3 of those 4 teams. Sam Perkins was the model of consistency and a player with no ego at all. He was the type of player every fan wanted on their team and every other player wanted to play with. But you couldn't let his lazy demeanor fool you, as Sam Perkins was exactly what his Mavs teammates dubbed him, a silent assassin. But that's it for today's episode on Big Smooth. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. If you liked it, check out this one on one of his Maverick teammates, or this one on one of his Seattle teammates. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.